Okay. Tom, hi. I think we've got the recording going for those who can't join us. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Suzanne. Happy Thursday to you. I like your background.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you. Yes, I was cheering myself up as the weather hasn't been quite so good this week.
yeah, it's not that great in the UK this week. A lot of rain after quite a bit of a heat wave, but it's nice to see flowers in any capacity, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And that's the reason, the UK's got so much greenery and flowers because we get the rain as well, but we like the
Yeah,
sunshine.
yeah.
But yeah, so we've been talking about Olympics this week, and I thought it's coffee shop conversation, isn't it? There's
Hmm.
sport, and I've been looking at some interesting background and reading up about the Olympics. But um, I noticed, I think we all knew this, that women haven't always been involved in the Olympics. But is there, I mean, I can see that conversation might be amongst students or friends. Is should men and women be involved in all sports? And certainly not wanting to say what's right or wrong, but something like boxing is quite controversial. Um, but what do you think? Are any sports that should be off? Some people perhaps think are off limits.
Well,
Off limits.
um, I suppose you could debate it about many different sports, but for me, like yourself, you want equality over everything. You mentioned boxing, and I love boxing, but
Mhm.
I think I wouldn't say I prefer women's boxing to men's boxing, but I
Mm.
like it just as much. And I'll tell you the reason for it is is if you like a sport at an amateur level, a basic level, like the vast majority of people, the way they train themselves or the way they perform themselves is obviously of a inferior or a lower quality. And if you're
Mm.
looking at elite athletes, whether it's in boxing or professional sport, you're never going to be able to sort of emulate or copy what they're doing. But if you see it at a sort of a lower level, which, women's
Yeah.
boxing would be compared to men's boxing, you're not going to get a woman to fight a man, obviously because of the hormones, etc.
Mm, different
Um,
body strengths. Yeah.
that women's boxing, I think, is much more technical,
Yeah.
and you can see the skills better from sort of layman's terms, from
Mm.
from the average person. Someone said that to me years ago about tennis as well. Men's tennis can be a bit too much of a power play all the time, of
Yeah.
smashing it over the net, serving at ridiculous speeds, whereas women's tennis is a little bit more technical, and you can see why it's being done, a bit more of a chess match, if you like,
Yeah.
rather than
That's
power. And that's how I feel. And I like women's football as well. I think all women's sports, to me personally, that's probably an unpopular view, is just as good as men's. So
yeah.
should we include it with everything? I think so.
Yeah, I think so, indeed. And listening to us talk, guys, this is an example of just having a conversation that isn't sort of not where one opinion is dominating. It is a true discussion, and it's quite an art sometimes to have a discussion rather than if there's someone else in the room who was totally disagreeing, they might be coming in very powerfully. But it's all up for discussion. I agree with what you say, Tom. And I was watching the women's football match, thinking back to the weekend. It was a bit of the Japan England match. And I mean, I don't know much about football, but there were some terrible passes. But I take the point, the people who say, I can achieve that, I can get in at that
Mm.
level of the rung. And also there was some amazing stuff, it must be said. The match, the couple of the goals that were scored were
Mm.
incredible. They were very, very good. But
Mm.
yeah, and everyone's got to start somewhere. But I know in running, the women's speeds have caught up because they will catch up because it's, not so many years of training and history and the science behind it. But
Mm.
I think I read somewhere that the gap is very, very small, and there will come a time when they converge. And in theory, women and men could run together in the same race.
I've got absolutely no idea, and I've never read any research about it or anyone whose, opinion I respect to be able to tell me. But I'd like to know which particular events or
Yeah.
which particular sports the men and women are closest, because I'm sure that's the case, as you say, and that the gap is closing in
Mm.
certain events. But I'd like to know which ones they're the closest at. Whether it's
Yes.
800 meters, presumably it's not 100 meters.
Mm.
What is the closest
Yeah.
gap between men and women in any of the events, really?
I think, and I have vague memories of reading that obviously there is a limit. We've got
Mm.
Usain Bolt ran under excuse me, under 10 seconds. And you, there's a point where you can't go any faster. It's absolutely impossible. So
Yeah.
um, women's techniques and speed will catch up, and it's narrowed. So yeah, what interesting to find out. I mean, another debate that I came across when I was looking around was, should Athens be the permanent home of the Olympics? And that was because the Olympics originated in Greece, and that was put forward as an idea. I've actually got some information here. I think it was when they first started the modern Olympics. But what do you think? What do
So
we?
what's the idea that it would be in Athens every 4 years, regardless?
Yes, I mean, I think it's an idea that has been put to one side now for various
Mm.
reasons. But would it have been a good idea to have the Olympics in the home of the Olympic Games?
For
There's,
me, no. Just because, how would people see it? For example, if it was in London, in 2020, 2012, people, you've got millions of people living in that country who has a chance to see it. And then
good
obviously in Japan at the moment, or
point.
wherever it is in the world. Otherwise, it's just limiting and a little bit elitist to people that have got money. Perhaps they can travel and go to Athens, but where's anyone from Africa or South America going to be able to get the money to go and see that? And even
Yeah.
family of the athletes, I don't. It depends on what the funding and budgeting is, but how can they go across the world to be able to support their family members?
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's very, 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 very true. And also the point, I think the argument against it was that for the host country, if it were in one country, whatever country, all the time, I mean, the modern Olympic Games cost a lot of money, and I feel for Japan at the moment, because surely
Mm,
with the not being ticket sales, I don't know how that's covered, or
mm,
but the income is not there because Tokyo is not getting the influx of tourists.
yeah.
So it costs a lot of money to put on the Olympic Games, a lot. And
And
it was,
also, even before COVID, there was a lot of resistance in Brazil for Rio to not have the Olympics.
yes, because of poverty. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
And even
absolutely.
in London, in the Olympics before that, there was a lot of issues around the areas where the stadiums were built, that there was a lot of people from working class communities being pushed out so they could knock down buildings and build private and luxury flats.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's not all plain sailing. That's a good expression, is
I'll
it?
put that one in.
Yeah, plain sailing. That's a good one. Not always straightforward. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think in modern history, if I was, as we are discussing, um, if I remember correctly, Los Angeles was the first Olympic Games in modern history not to lose money, and because there were cities couldn't afford to bid for it, because there's a bidding process to get the Olympic Games, isn't there?
Mm.
But no one was bidding for it because it costs so much. I have an interesting little story I found here. Apparently, in 1896, an American athlete won the discus throw, but he'd never thrown a discus before he went to the Olympic Games. Which
Wow.
the story goes something to the effect of that individuals just went to the games. They weren't, countries didn't organise them, and he had this really heavy discus, but hardly throw it. And then it says here, I got the article up. When he arrived in Athens, he found a lighter regulation discus and decided to enter the competition. Remember, he'd never thrown this before. Didn't succeed in the first couple of throws, but eventually threw this discus 95 feet and beat the local favorite, Paniotis Paraskevoulos, which means Friday. So the local hero was beaten by this visiting discus thrower who'd never thrown a discus in his life.
Mm.
But, so the and wasn't there a swimmer from was it from Ecuador who had never swum in an Olympic competition and won his I remember that a few years back because everyone else had made a false start and he was the only person swimming in the pool.
Wow.
Does
There are
that?
some incredible stories, aren't there, about people's resilience and talent
Mm,
I mean, this is away from the Olympics, but there was a French chap called Philippe Croissant, and he's alive now. And he was the first person without arms and legs, limbless person, to swim the channel
wow.
between the UK and France. So it's 23 kilometers, and he swam it in 13 hours, which is quite a bit of a record time. But Mr. Quazon, Philippe Quazon, this French gentleman, this was about 10 years ago. He's
Mm.
limbless, no arms and legs from the elbow. And the strange thing for the story for me is that when he was able-bodied, he
Mm.
couldn't swim. So when he was 26, he went on the roof of his house to change the aerial. He was electrocuted, and the
Mm.
burns meant that he had to have his arms and legs amputated. And it was only then that he learned how to swim, and then swam the channel between two countries.
Gosh, the
Incredible.
incredible human resilience, as you say, it's
Yeah,
amazing. And that's one of the great things I think about the well, we know about the Olympics is it brings out the best in people. I mean, yeah, there have been stories of drugs and doping, and that's always something in sport that shouldn't be there, and unfortunately it is. But it's for the most people taking part in any sport, it's that determination to do well, whether you're playing at the weekend, what we call
yeah,
here Sunday leagues, football, perhaps. It's
yeah,
just that you're going out and doing your best, and that is an amazing story.
yeah, yeah. Incredible. I've put it down as well. I've put limbless, which is the adjective that describes someone
Mhm.
obviously without arms and legs. The limb is the arm or the limb is the leg, but an amazing feat. And the word feat is an achievement, and it's very common with amazing. So there's loads of amazing feats in Olympic achievement, but also in life in general, whether it's
Yeah.
sport or not. And the pronunciation of feet, F-E-A-T, exactly the same as the feet we stand on. You know, it's a
Yeah.
homophone. It's the same thing we say. But yeah, sporting achievements and human resilience is just unbelievable. What
Yeah.
do you think? What, just a question to yourself, Suzanne, and it's something to do with like the gap between men and women and
Mm.
achievements and times and distances, is when there's situations of obviously doping and
Mm.
drug taking, as you said, but where there's situations of maybe women having too much testosterone in their body and competing. Do you remember the South African athlete
Yeah.
a couple of Olympics ago where
Yes,
she was
exactly.
women, but people were saying, well, genetically
Mm.
she's sort of half a man and half a woman. That's an interesting
It is, isn't it?
situation as well.
And you could say almost, I mean, we, we've got God-given attributes and talents. And I was thinking of to answer your question, the Olympic American swimmer, or what's his name? He won so many gold medals. What is his name? He's still, but my point being his feet,
Phelps.
Phelps, yeah, his feet are an incredible size. So on the same count, people might say he had an
Yeah.
unfair advantage because his feet were, I think in England an average woman's foot might be size 6, a man's maybe between 9 and 12. I think he was somewhere near 20, but he has incredibly,
Really?
yeah, I should check that, but incredibly long feet like flippers. So should he not be allowed to win because it's the same sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. So if you've got a personal attribute that's going to help you with that sport.
Why not use it?
Mm,
And I suppose, like people who are tall or have got, their body shape allows them to do decathlon and many
yeah.
different, yeah.
Interesting. I'm going to put in the chat a low center of gravity. That
Yeah.
means basically short or people with shorter legs that enables them to turn and spin faster.
Okay, I have to correct myself here. According to my quick Google search, he's had a size 14 foot, but I think the American sizes are different. But in other words, he had a very, very big shoe size. But
Mm,
I have a feeling, I'm going to say in UK meanings, in UK, it was more than a 14, yeah. And then people measure feet in different, that's another conversation, is it different measurements all around the world, but
yeah.
he has a very, very big foot. So
Yeah.
yeah, but it's a good
Yeah.
question. That poor athlete that you're referring to, the South African athlete, she had years of people accusing her of unfair advantage, and why wouldn't we credit her with her athleticism and her training,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think
That's a good point.
Fatima Whitbread, one of the British javelin throwers from years
Yeah.
ago, she faced the same issues
Yeah.
because she didn't look like a traditional woman looks like. And
Mm,
what's a typical human? We're all different, aren't we? And that's
exactly.
wonderful.
What's normal? There's no such thing, is there?
No, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about with the Olympics, and we'll be running this topic over into next week, and perhaps looking back at use some good past tense of what's happened over this week. So we will see everyone again Friday for Q&A. Please do drop in questions in the group, and next Tuesday for conversation and digging a little bit deeper into sports in the Olympic.
Yeah, lovely to see you, Susan. Take care of everybody and put some questions in. And remember, all questions are good.
Absolutely. All questions are good. So that's ending our sort of coffee shop style conversation about this week's Olympics. Take care. Bye-bye.
Happy Thursday. Bye-bye.
Happy Thursday. Bye.